Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another product review. This time I'm going to be taking a look at something that's been on the market for quite some time. Indeed, to the point where to get a hard copy, I actually had to order it from the Frog God Games website. This is 5th edition Foes from Necromancer Games. Published in 2015 by Necromancer Games, it is available both in hardback and PDF formats, and is compatible with the 5th edition of the world's most popular role-playing game. I will put links down below where you can pick it up in hard copy or PDF from RPG Now or Tabletop Library or places like that, or from the original manufacturer's website. Anyway, for those who don't know, Necromancer Games was a company that rose during the 3rd edition era and published a lot of third-party content for the D20 systems, many of which had an old-school 1st edition feel. This included a series of monster books called the Tome of Horrors, which included a fairly large number of monsters during its 4-volume run, with a Pathfinder translation available later. Among these monsters were many which were culled from the earliest days of Dungeons & Dragons, 1st edition and the original, which were made available to Necromancer Games through a special agreement beyond the normal OGL. I believe this is the same agreement which allowed them to be used in various variations throughout the entire cycle of the Tome of Horrors product line through 3rd and 3.5 and into Pathfinder. Even the monsters that were written just for Tome of Horrors had the same sort of look and feel that you would expect from monsters from earlier edition products, so they fit right in. I believe it's actually the same agreement that allows them to put this book out, because all of the details on those monsters refer back to the original Tome of Horror series. Now, what does Tome of Horrors have to do with the 5th edition Foes? Well, I just said so. Pretty much everything. 5th edition Foes uses a number of monsters from the Tome of Horror series, as well as creatures from the original 1st edition material, all translated into the 5th edition system. I believe that there's a couple in here that were not in Tome of Horrors, but there are over 250 creatures in here, some of which admittedly are subtypes of the same creature, but that's a lot of creatures, and I haven't really checked to see which ones were taken from which sources. There are a variety of themes in here, from the conversions of 1st edition classics, such as the Adhere, the Cave Fisher, and the Vegapygmies, to creatures that were designed just for the Tome of Horror series, like the Arcanoplasm, the Fear Guard, and 2 different types of Gru. The technical details. Physically, the book is a good quality hardback. It seems a bit thicker than the official D&D Monster Manual. The binding is decent for moderate use. The pages are done in black and white without a gloss finish, in a style reminiscent of older game books. In terms of contents, there's a short foreword from Steve Winter, who was with TSR back in the classic era, that some of these included monsters would have actually been from. The majority of this book is indeed monster descriptions, with just a few pages at the end devoted to lists of the monsters by type and challenge rating, and then the legal information required in order to produce a book like this. It should be noted that this book was compiled and released before the 5th edition SRD was released. Therefore, it operates off of the old 3rd edition SRD. As a result, some of the concepts like advantage and disadvantage, etc., that were included in the 5th edition are not part of that early SRD and therefore are referred to by alternate terminology. For instance, tactical advantage versus just normal advantage, things like that. It's not a deal breaker by any means. You should be able to figure out what means what. Also of note is that the monster stat blocks, and I'll try and pull one up to show you. The monster stat blocks are written in a way that you'd expect of Pathfinder or 3rd edition monsters rather than the 5th edition monsters. And that was not a big show. But you see what I mean. It looks more like a 3rd edition or Pathfinder monster entry, and I may be able to get a screenshot or something up on the screen if I remember. It's not something that can't be worked around. So all of the information is still there. It's just a matter of the information's in a different order than you might expect if you're used to only 5th edition stuff. Since the vast majority, if not all of the creatures in here were released in the Tome of Horrors line of products, It's perhaps not surprising that a lot of the interior art was reused, and I did just show you some of it. Most of the monsters here have black and white illustrations done in a manner similar to older edition artwork from the early 90s and mid to late 80s. It was mostly pulled over directly from the Tome of Horrors releases and fit into the new format. And I'm presuming that those monsters that are new, I'm not sure which ones are new, had art done in that same style. I'm not really going to go over the monsters individually, since with over 250 of them, we could be here all day. As of this review, it is available on RPG Now as a PDF as well, and the preview will allow access to the table of contents on that site. So if you need a quick look to see if any of the monsters in here jump out at you, I mean, like the concepts, not the actual monsters, because a lot of these monsters do jump out at the players, then go ahead and take a look at the preview chapter on RPG Now, and you should be able to get the table of contents from that. I will say that there's no split between normal animals and monsters in this book, and there are a few normal animals scattered in these pages, but they just fall in line with the rest of the monsters rather than having their own separate appendix like they do in the 5th edition products. So just be advised. I should also point out that I believe a few of these monsters were released in core D&D products since this book came out, although that number is relatively small, so there may be multiple versions of these things now, the official WotC one and the one in here, but I'm not 100% on the scope of that. There should be just a handful at most. And that's only probably going to get worse with the expansion, the Volo's Guide to Monsters is coming out soon. We'll have to see how many of those monsters are also in this book, although I should imagine it's not going to be very many at all. So there's still plenty of creatures in here that are unique to this book. There's a really good mix of different monster challenge ratings, with monsters available up to CR 20, which is rare in 5th edition. But the vast majority of these things are the CR 1 to 4 range, which is appropriate for the new power layout and the power scaling in the 5th edition system. Likewise, there's a really good mix among the various monster types, with just a slight edge given to the monstrosity type, and only a few giants listed out of all of them. The quality of the monsters of themselves is, in my opinion, pretty great, but your mileage may vary. They are mostly geared towards an older edition feel, and as a result may be quite challenging for the equivalent challenge rating given in the new system. There's a good mix of interesting abilities present among them that can make for quite a surprise for people that are used to the stuff from the core material only. There's more than a few entries here that'll make older players go on a nostalgia trip once they recognize the creature in question. From a Dungeon Master's perspective, I think it's well worth the price, especially the cheaper PDF version for the sheer quantity of monsters that are available in here. Another consideration, however, are those who want to reuse monsters in their product from this book. A large number of these monsters are ordinarily open game content, albeit from an earlier version of the license, and can be reused under the earlier versions of that license in your products. There are, however, a number of others, especially the ones taken from the earlier versions of D&D, that follow special rules for reuse, including a reference to the original Tome of Horrors license. And if you can use those, I'm not certain if you can, the book gives you guidelines for if you want to use them in your product. You'll have to include a special entry for those in your legal section, basically referring to the Tome of Horrors version of them. I haven't really investigated mixing monsters from this particular OGL content with those from the new 5th edition SRD, but it should be possible. I'll leave that for somebody else to either look at, or I may do a video on mixing versions of the OGL in a future video if I can figure it out. So, for my final thoughts, if you're willing to accept that the majority of these are basically updates of monsters that were already printed, and then you keep an eye out for alternative wording due to the use of the older SRD, then this is going to be a great addition to the library of a DM, especially somebody who likes older edition creatures or games with a retro feel, or those who just want to spring a nasty surprise on their particular group of players. The hardcover itself may be a bit iffy to track down, or at least it may be a bit iffy to justify purchasing. It's got a list price of $39.99, but I believe I paid actually more than that from the manufacturer's site. But the PDF is only like, I believe, $19.99. I'll have to take a look. If I'm wrong, I'll edit this out and put something in this area somewhere. I don't know. But I, for one, found the hardcover a worthwhile investment so far. Maybe we'll see a new version with the modern SRD someday, or maybe we'll see a volume 2. I don't know. Hopefully, if anybody's listening. I really did enjoy it, and I would like to see more similar creatures out there. For now, I'm going to leave this review at that. This has been the RPG Crawler with Necromancer Games 5th Edition Foes. I will be reviewing the Volo's Guide to Monsters upcoming when I get it, and the Tome of Beasts in a future video, both from different publishers, WotC and Kobold Press respectively. So keep your eye out on those if you love watching monster manual reviews. For now, if you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you have feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content. Remember, I now have a Patreon, so if you feel like supporting the channel or just generally seeing videos like this a few days early, other basic Patreon rewards that you might come across, take a look at the Patreon page. I'll put a link at the end of the video and in the description below. For now, until next time, take care and goodbye.